And Sven, I'm going to ask you to kick off this meeting, and I will catch right back up with you guys in 5 minutes. Okay?
Uh,
Thanks.
you guys are seeing the second district on the go tonight. And thank you all for joining us for an old school virtual meeting. There were a lot of logistics to work out tonight, and our agenda reflects some late-breaking changes in those logistics, including that our planning department colleagues are not able to join us after all for our meeting this evening. And so we will be handling the code refresh updates as a second district update from Councilor Jordan and myself. But as scheduled, we are kicking things off with our one of our incredible General Assembly delegation members. Delegate Ray Cousins has joined us, and Julianne McFarland in Delegate Cousins' office to provide an update on all things General Assembly, a little preview of the 2026 General Assembly session. Bust out that crystal ball, Delegate Cousins. Uh,
I know.
and if folks have any questions for the delegate or her office as she goes through her updates, please feel free to either drop them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll go ahead and unmute you. And with that, Delegate Cousins, the floor is yours.
Sounds great. Thanks, Sven. So happy to be here with you all virtually. I am joining from my office at Brown Greer at the law firm. So I was telling Sven and Catherine the lighting isn't great, but hopefully you all can see me okay. So we are coming off of a big round of elections from last Tuesday. As I'm sure you all know by now, Virginia elected Abigail Spanberger as our governor, Ghazala Hashmi as lieutenant governor, Jay Jones as attorney general. And in the Virginia House of Delegates, the Democrats picked up 13 seats. So we now have a larger majority, which includes 64 Democrats in the Virginia House of Delegates. And I will just say that we have 37 women currently serving who have been elected in the House of Delegates. And so that is the largest caucus that we've ever had of women. We actually have more women than there are Republicans in the House of Delegates at the moment. So just really excited about that, about the progress that we're making, the work that we'll be able to do. Just a couple of quick legislative updates. So we did go back into special session the week before the election to take up redistricting. And so we did pass legislation to address congressional districts. And so the legislation does not do away with the Independent Redistricting Commission that we all voted on, I believe it was in 2019 or 2020. But what it does, so it leaves that Independent Redistricting Commission intact. But what the legislation or constitutional amendment does is give the General Assembly the option to redraw congressional maps if a state takes action to redraw theirs. And the time frame is January 1st, 2025 through October 31st, 2030. So that did pass both the House of Delegates and the State Senate. The next step with the constitutional amendment is that we have to pass it again in the 26th session, and then voters will be able to weigh in at that point on if that is something that we want to see here in Virginia. The 2026 legislative session starts Wednesday, January 14th, and this year we will have a 60-day session. I will say for our part, the Richmond delegation has met with the Richmond School Board. We have also started to meet with the city, with the mayor's office, and we had to cancel, I believe, the Richmond legislative session that we were scheduled to have with city council because special session ended up happening during that time. But I would imagine that we will try to reconvene that meeting so that we are aware of the city's priorities going into the 2026 session. But other than that, I am just really excited to have been reelected myself and just look forward to continuing to do work that will benefit all Richmonders. And I'm happy to take any questions if you all have any.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Delegate. And again, folks, if you want to drop something in the chat or if you raise your hand, we can go ahead and unmute you. And once we're confident that we got no Zoom bombers online, we'll also just allow you to unmute yourself as well. And if folks are feeling a little bit shy this evening, I am happy to ask one question, and that is, are there any bills that you know that you will be working on going into the General Assembly session that you are excited about, either as a member of a coalition or championing yourself, and or is that sort of still up to be determined? And is there any outreach that folks should expect to see coming from your office between now and the session to help shape that?
That's great. Thank you, Sven, for that question. So we currently have a list of about 60 pieces of legislation that I am interested in. So of course we have to definitely narrow that down. But I think one of the big areas that I would like to focus on, especially with what we're seeing from the federal landscape, is food access, food insecurity, making sure that we are equipped on the state level to withstand some of the cuts that we're seeing, and then just also supporting and leveraging our agriculture, our local producers, like local producers and our small farmers in Virginia's agricultural system to assist with food access and getting more nutritional school meals to our kids and also nutritional foods and meals to our families. So that is an area that I focused on during my first term and just want to continue to dig in there. Also, I know that we are all focused on continuing to fully fund public education and expanding opportunities for early childhood education. So we are continuing to look at ways that we can enhance both of those and just support our public schools here in Virginia. I know that that is a priority for Governor Spanberger as well as for the General Assembly. So I would say those are sort of the two areas right now that are probably my biggest focus.
Awesome. And in terms of outreach from your office between now and session that folks should be keeping an eye out for, and Julie in the chat asked a similar question: how can residents best keep up with what's going on in the General Assembly, both from your office and in general?
Yeah, so I have, and I know that Betsy Carr and Michael Jones as well. We all send newsletters by email. I typically, in our office, like outside of session, we send newsletters by email monthly. And so if you'd like to sign up to receive that newsletter, you can do so at raycousins.com. Julianne, is that the sorry, that's my website, right? Raycousins.com. Okay.
Yep. And I also just dropped it in the chat.
Okay, great. Yeah. So you can sign up there. During session, we typically send a newsletter and also post on social media all of the legislation that my office will introduce in the upcoming session. And then during session, we'll send weekly newsletters just to keep everyone informed of what's happening in the legislature.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that. And I do believe that y'all's newsletter sign up is also in the second district newsletter community resources tab. If it's not, Julianne will get on me about that and we'll make sure we get that updated. Want to take a moment to go to some of the questions in the chat. Kristen asks, knowing that this is federal, is there anything that we can do about post office delivery issues in the Scotts Addition, West Hampton post office service area? Kristen, I will just volunteer that I'm happy to follow up with you offline about that and make sure we connect with Congresswoman McClellan's office. But Delegate Cousins, did you have anything else to share there?
No, it's the same for we've gotten some concerns about that from constituents as well. And we have just followed up with Congresswoman McClellan on that.
Yeah.
And her office is very responsive. So
that's been our experience as well.
Yeah.
So we're all knocking on their door together.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Kristen, if you've got our email contact, feel free to follow up with us there and happy to pick up the ball on that. Debbie asks about city council and our process for establishing legislative priorities for the session from the city, and whether it was the purpose of the meeting that was ultimately canceled because of the special session to set that agenda. Debbie, I'm happy to take that briefly and just say that we are finalizing. We are in the final stages of wrapping up our 2026 agenda for both sharing with our delegation, but also sharing with the General Assembly more broadly, and have been really working with the delegation, our legislative consultants, the two capitals consulting team, and for the first time really this year, the city administration as well. The mayor and his team and our intergovernmental relations director have been working closely on that. And we expect to have that formally introduced to council at our meeting in December. But given we're cognizant that we're up against some tight timelines on the General Assembly side, and so we really want to have that finalized before then. And we hope to have a document that we can share out for folks here shortly. There was some discussion and sort of consensus that was reached at council's meeting on Monday about sort of the top 5, as it were, in terms of both policy requests and budget, and then also sort of a general statement of principles about what the city wants to see and how we feel about some hot topic issues. So I hope that's helpful. Happy to share more once we have that concrete and nailed down. I'm happy to share a previous iteration of the legislative agenda that has changed since it was posted. So I would just add that proviso, but I'll put that in the chat. Delegate Cousins, I hate to filibuster you here, but a couple questions about the city's legislative agenda, but also pertinent to kind of your perspective on it. Mandatory inclusionary zoning, is that something you're hearing from constituents? Is that something that your office is talking about and you're hearing about from the delegation and your colleagues?
Yeah, so we that has been an issue that we've heard about over the years, from my understanding, even before I was elected. And so I know Betsy Carr previously carried legislation to add Richmond to the list for allowing mandatory inclusionary zoning. I know that when Jennifer McClellan was in the state Senate, there's a portion of the code, two sections of the code that deal with this. So there's the one section that has the list of localities that are allowed to implement mandatory inclusionary zoning. And then there's a separate section that applies to inclusionary zoning for all other localities. And so State Senator McClellan attempted to sort of repeal that second part such that mandatory inclusionary zoning would be allowed in all localities across Virginia. Jeremy McPike, who is a state senator out of Northern Virginia, introduced similar legislation last year, which did pass the General Assembly, but it was vetoed by the governor. So I say all that to say it is on our radar. I know it's something that legislators from across the Commonwealth are interested in. And so we're hoping to get something done on that this next session.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, folks, let me know if I miss anything in the chat here. And Debbie says, thank you for that response. I did drop the, again, latest that is available online, but somewhat out of date agenda that you can take a look at from the city. But I think it's fair to say that the ultimate product will align closely with that document in terms of the values it espouses and some of the priorities reflected there. All right, and if folks have any questions that they want to voice themselves, go ahead and raise your hand and I can unmute you. And Delegate Cousins, anything else that you want to share? Any other parting words of wisdom? Oh, and Mitch asked, is there any discussion on legislation regarding multimodal planning and infrastructure in VDOT right-of-way, of which we have a lot in the region?
So, Mitch, that I am unsure of, but I can definitely look into it. And maybe Sven, we could send some information to you and you can get that to Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And Mitch, I know you know this better than most, but we also do a lot of our planning for VDOT dollars at the regional level through CVTA and through the RRTPO. And so I'm happy to drop in the chat some of the resources where folks can learn more about what those organizations have in store. But great question. Awesome. All right.
Cool.
And Counselor Jordan, are you back with us if you have any parting words for the delegate and anything General Assembly related?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank Delegate Cousins for the excellent job she does representing us at the General Assembly. It's just really been inspiring to watch how quickly you have acclimated to that setting. It's a challenging workplace and you're just crushing it. So really grateful that you're a delegate and appreciate you making time for us this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Thanks, y'all. And Delegate Cousins and Julian, if as a parting reminder, I know that folks on this call probably know, but can you remind folks where in the second district you guys represent, or what sort of neighborhoods in that vicinity you guys represent in the general?
Yeah, so it is one district and it's or one precinct and it's Carver. So, but I like to think I work on behalf of the entire second district along with Betsy, of course. I don't want to step on Betsy's toes.
One team, one dream.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. With that, then next up on our agenda are some. Sleeves has a spicy late breaking question regarding annexation and the Dillon rule. Do you have any comments on that, Delegate Cousins, before I know you had to hop off pretty soon?
Okay. Well, the Dillon rule, that's a hot topic. I'll be completely candid and honest with you. I don't think there's any appetite to repeal that anytime soon. Annexation, I guess I would need more specifics on what you mean by that, because I know, we've obviously have a history of annexing certain parts of the city of Richmond. I know there's been some discussion and I've gotten some questions about annexation here in Richmond historically and some of the funding that the state, I guess, promised as a result of that. And so that's something that has come up, but
Yeah, I can tell you.
Without, more
Yeah.
specifics, I'm not comfortable answering that question about allowing municipalities to annex.
And Sleeves, for what it's worth, to Delegate Cousins' point about that being a really thorny topic, I don't think you're going to see that scope of request in the legislative agenda from the city, given some of the complexities around that. You are correct. It can be a radioactive topic. That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. I would just offer that before we start having more conversations about annexation, I think that there are opportunities, I believe, for this. And what I would like to delve more into is like how the state can be more supportive in economic development and supporting economic development that is more like community based within the city, and just looking at opportunities there, looking at innovative ways that we can also develop affordable housing. I know that that's, sort of a topic that is on the table when we're talking about development. So I think there are some other, tools that we can explore without, necessarily talking about annexation. But, it's something I'll be honest, I haven't really thought much about it, but it's something that I can, look into for sure.
We've got everything from neighborhood level concerns to big picture thinkers in the second district. So
yeah, it's great.
And thanks, Leeds, for the questions. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Feel free to stick around as long as you'd like, but I know you guys have other engagements this evening.
Yeah, I gotta run, but thank you all, and I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Okay.
And next up, our fantastic second district partner in crime, board member Katie Ricard, is here. She had a late night last night, I think, right? For a board meeting on a holiday, but is doing a double header with us tonight. So thank you, board member Ricard, for joining us. And you should be
All right. Thank you, Sven. Hi, everyone. Katie Ricard, second district school board member. always appreciate being here. And I know Delegate Cousins has left, but I do want to thank her publicly. She is a great supporter of our schools and our education system and public education. And I know she really advocates for us, and we are grateful to her, along with Delegate Carr and, and Senator Bagby. Um, so just a few updates. Kind of first off, in light of SNAP, of course, the city has rolled out many support services, but I just wanted to highlight that Richmond Public Schools has their own additional support for families, and that's something that we call our mobile love markets. And the first one was this past Friday, and it'll be the next 2 Fridays, and then we will reevaluate need. And they are all day at Clark Springs. So what's lovely is that Clark Springs is getting used. It went right back into use, and in part because it has a fairly large kitchen that allows it to store food. But working with Feed More and with the Richmond Ed Fund, we are running an all-day food pantry for families to come by. And we asked for registration just so we can help know when people are coming and approximate food. But at the same point, everyone is welcome to come if they have a need. So they have been pushing that out through their social media. And I've been sharing it as well. Last time we spoke at Fox, I touched briefly on the new cut scores and accreditation system that is coming through from the state. We still have not received those metrics. They actually delayed the decision on what the cut scores would be and how they would be doing the final accreditation. So we are still in kind of a waiting pattern for when that information will come out. What we are advocating for is that it is a rollout of the cut scores so that they don't automatically, for instance, go from 400 being passing to 426 being passing, but that over the next 4 years, maybe passing is 409, and then it's 415, and then it's 422. And it would just allow our students to grow with the new system and hopefully just have less of an impact on our schools and our accreditation. So that's something that the superintendent and as school board members, we're just continuing to advocate for. And the good news is because the Board of Education has delayed making that decision, that tells us that they are at least thinking about it and really weighing what needs to be done. Of course, with the change in governor, there will be a change in the Board of Education down the road. And so who knows what will happen. So we're just also kind of waiting and seeing that. One thing that was presented at our board meeting on Monday was RPS's legislative priorities. And so I did just link that here in our PDF. But I just wanted to also just briefly touch on them for you. Our first big priority is working on school construction and modernization. So last year, the House and Senate passed the 1% sales tax legislation to allow voters to fund modern facilities, and the governor did veto it. We're hoping that that passes again this year and that Governor Spanberger signs it into law, and then it's working with City Council to see what can be done to hopefully have that happen. But also just trying to renew the Commission on School Construction and Modernization, which was something that when she was in the Senate, Senator McClellan put forward. And that was something that also helped provide some one-time funding. What our Director of Advocacy, Matthew Stanley, has kind of told us that he believes the General Assembly will be more interested in funding one-time things this year and maybe not making sustained funding commitments just due to everything that's been going up in Northern Virginia and just uncertainty about the tax windfalls. So trying to advocate for just some one-time financial, I guess, release and relief might probably be the better word. And then other things we're advocating for at the level is continuing to advocate for reforming Virginia's K-12 funding formula. We would love for it to be based on our students Right now, it is not based on our students. And why we would love a student-based funding formula is because that would allow, especially for Richmond Public Schools, we have a lot of students with disabilities, students that live in poverty, that are economically disadvantaged, and a student-based funding formula would take that more into account, and we believe would give us more money from the state. What is interesting is actually just out of the last Board of Education meeting, it looks like they are advocating for that as well. So it is actually good that we might maybe get a little more of an effort behind that student-based funding formula, which once again would then alleviate our requests to the city if the state starts chipping in more, which we would like. And then one thing that we hope to partner with the city on is just asking for an increase in our pilot payments. One thing that we have a lot of properties that are from universities, that are from the state government, that they don't have to pay taxes, and instead they pay a payment in lieu of taxes, which is called the pilot payment. And so it is notoriously low. And we would really love for that to get raised. It would go to the city, but that would just benefit everyone. So that's something we're advocating for as well. And then just continuing to strengthen our student mental health supports. Right now, it's 3 student support staff per 1,000 students, and that could be counselors, they could be psychologists, they could be social workers. That's a really high ratio. We would love to get that lower so we can have more support staff in our schools. So happy to answer any questions about our legislative priorities. One thing we're going to be doing is hosting some town halls on how you can help advocate for Richmond Public Schools, and I will be pushing that out. If you'd like to help us with that, we would love our community to let the General Assembly know what we need. Just some other things that we're working on right now. We are working on a master facilities plan that will be developed over the next year, and that will create a 10-year plan for our facilities, what the needs are, what the asks will be. It's also going to look at our schools and see which schools are maybe underpopulated, which ones are overpopulated, which ones really just need to be replaced. So we're excited for when that will get revealed, which will be in the fall of next year. And then just a final thing I'd like to talk about, and I'm happy to take any questions, is I do want to shout out VCU. Some of you may not know, but VCU has really come on board for our second district schools this year. They've done a bunch of events, parent engagement events, and student events at Carver to support attendance and engagement there. They hosted and helped out at a Halloween party for our Dogwood Middle School students on a Halloween day. And we're actually we're meeting with Richmond Success Academy next week. They would love to do some reading and mentoring there. They're also serving as reading and mentors at Carver. So VCU, I'm just grateful to them for really growing their relationships with our schools in District 2 this year. And I think that's all from me, Sven.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm happy to talk about why I voted for changes in our collective bargaining agreement. I would not say it was a vote against the unions. It was just a vote to make the agreement work well for all of our needs. Just last year, the grievance procedure going with lawyers cost RPS $120,000. We are looking at tight years over the next few years. And so that was why, in working with the unions, they developed a new grievance process that has worked well for unions in other counties that they've seen. That was actually brought forward by one of the unions as a change. That's going to save us money. We also, there's now 10 topics, topic proposals instead of unlimited. In part, that's just because we need to stay focused in our bargaining and making sure that we're getting it done and moving forward for the sake of our teachers and our students and our families. So as I said last night, I have had the pleasure in my career of being in a union myself. I've had the pleasure of working in school districts where I was not in a union. And when I looked at the changes that were put forth by the administration, but also with feedback from the unions, I did feel that they were fair. And I am not about removing unions from Richmond Public Schools. They are important for our teachers and for our students and our families. Um, but it was the first time, and everything needs to change.
Awesome. Thank you, Board Member Ricard. Counselor Jordan, are you back on audio? Yes.
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you so much. Katie, appreciate you joining us second night here after working late last night. And yeah, collective bargaining is really tricky and there are lots of layers to it and it's hard to strike that balance. But I, have faith that you read, through all the documents and made a thoughtful decision. So appreciate you answering the tough questions and representing us well on school board. Any other questions for Katie or Sven? Are we ready to move on to the next agenda item?
Yeah, and folks, again, feel free to drop those in the chat or raise your hand and we can unmute you. And Board Member Ricard, to your earlier point about pilot payments from the Commonwealth, I'm trying to remember what the statistic was off the top of my head from the RPS and city meeting from earlier this summer, but I want to say it was in the ballpark of $120 million a year. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my thought as well. I have to apologize, everyone. I have to head out. I'm actually working tonight at my other job. So I'm going to go back to that. But please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Yep.
And up next, we've got our fantastic Office of Sustainability, represented by the wonderful Tara Worden here with us this evening to give us an update on something that has been in the headlines recently, but is due for implementation soon, and that is the plastic bag tax. So, Tara, thank you for joining us this evening and letting us know what's going on.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen. So, okay, I think I have. Okay, is everybody seeing a presentation? I'm going to try to make it large. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Tara Worden. I'm the Sustainability Manager in the Office of Sustainability. We have been doing some significant outreach over the past month and a half since October. We've been hitting the streets. We've been at a lot of events and we have been going to all of our council district meetings. So this is actually one of the final council district meetings and I'm happy to present to the second district. You guys are a very engaged bunch. So I have a very brief presentation and I'll leave it open for some questions following this. So I don't know if anybody in the chat can throw up a hand, but have you guys heard of RVA Green 2050? Anybody? Yay. Okay. Sven, representing for the crew. RVA Green 2050 is our climate equity action plan. It is a strategic plan that gets our city to net neutral carbon emissions by 2050. There are over 130 strategic actions listed in that document, and we are 28% done. It has been adopted since 2023, so we've had about 2.5 years to get the ball rolling on the number of implementation measures, one of which comes from the waste reduction pathway, is a plastic bag tax. In 2021, our General Assembly gave municipalities the ability to tax plastic bags at convenience stores, grocery stores, and pharmacies for 5 cents. Council was able to adopt this legislation locally in the summer of 2025, and the implementation will start on January 1 of 2026. So we are slowly but surely heading towards a new year and a new tax. So we are giving out bags. Our office has given out over 2,000 bags in the past month and a half. I have bags for the second district if and when there is a meeting in person. Would like to sort of offset the imposition of a tax with a free giveaway of a bag. I know a lot of people already have bags and are in a habit of using these bags. I'll go into the why. So yes, 2050. I'm sorry, RVA Green 2050 aims to reduce our landfill waste by a considerable amount. And we're doing so by sort of regulating the intake of the plastic bags. How does the tax revenue work? So at the till, at convenience stores, grocery stores, and convenience stores, grocery stores, convenience stores, and drugstores, for every bag that you use, the retailer will charge you 5 cents per bag. Now, from that 5 cents, the retailers will send 4 cents to the state. The state Department of Taxation sends those 4 cents collectively monthly with the same remittance process as a sales tax. The kickback goes to the city. City has established a special fund, or city council established a special fund for these dollars, and they are restricted dollars per the legislation, and it can only go to litter cleanups, recycling education, and providing reusable bags to recipients of SNAP or WIC. And then the other 1 cent, the retailer holds on to that. So currently retailers can't really charge for plastic bags, but this provides them some offset to that cost of the administration of this tax. The money that we receive, so we did a quick analysis with some peer cities. We are the 12th city in the Commonwealth of Virginia to adopt this legislation. Based on a peer city review, we expect the revenue to generate annually around $400,000, which for our office, this is an amount of money we've never had before to operate any type of program for litter cleanups or recycling education. So we are super jazzed about the potential for really expanding the breadth of the work that we do related to waste reduction. It's sort of landmark for our office, and we're very, very excited. And I will keep it going. So why tax plastic bags? We use them once and then they sit in the landfill forever, and they degrade into tiny particles called microplastic that damage our water quality, pollute our air, and eventually get into our food streams and our bodies. So when you are thinking about plastic, just the utilization of plastic in general, there's a lot of benefits to avoiding a single-use plastic material in general. But you can save 5 cents by just bringing a reusable bag to the shops when you do your groceries. Spread the word. Tell your neighbors. We have done an incredible amount of outreach for our tiny but mighty office, and I'm sure there are folks in Richmond that still don't know about this. But we are trying to let everybody know. If you have friends and family that live in the city of Richmond, just give them a little heads up that this is coming. We don't want anybody to be surprised by this. And we're excited. If there are questions, I will stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody's. Right, how do I stop it? Oh, stop share. Okay.
You got it. And there was already a question. Thank you for that. There's already a question in the chat about whether this was a statewide tax, and our very knowledgeable constituents have jumped on that question, and I think addressed it accurately in that, and as you touched on, it is an optional locally implemented tax that a number of localities have implemented, and we're sort of joining that chorus. Sleeves does ask, do the bags have possums on them, opossum on them? And
that is so funny because our dear Department of Economic Development, we're actually the ones that funded the purchase of this bag that we are giving away right now. They purchased 2,500 bags for the outreach effort, and we went back and forth about the design, and a possum was mentioned, but then it got worked out of the design proposal for being not serious enough. So we have it's a little bag that has groceries in it, and he says, bring your own bag. Less plastic is fantastic. And I'm happy to somehow get them to you guys. I'm not sure if you have another meeting that I can just pass them along to you guys and they could be distributed at a future meeting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we do love some rhyme scheme there. And Sleeves, it sounds like you're going to have to be in that working group next time. Jack asks a really good question. Do we know what percentage of the reusable bags are still made of plastic, and have we done sort of a study on the carbon footprint implications?
Oh, great question. So the procurement process of the bags that we purchased were they were 100% made of post-consumer recycled plastics. Um, I have seen the New York Times ages ago did a pretty incredible life cycle cost analysis of or of reusable bags, and to my knowledge, that's the most comprehensive assessment that I've seen. Is you have to use that one reusable bag 56 years for it to pay off and its for its carbon footprint. So the real benefit of avoiding the plastic bags is less about the carbon emissions it takes to produce the plastic bags, but more so about the environmental impacts of the litter. Most of the time, our DPU stormwater team is pulling out a ton of these plastic bags and diapers from the stormwater inputs. We spend a lot of money, the city does, on maintaining our stormwater infrastructure. And if we can cut down on one waste stream that finds its way into the stormwater system, then I think that can be a win for the city's finances. There's the ecosystem benefits in general for avoiding the use of plastic bags, and then there's also the financial benefits of litter reduction. And in our office, we try to frame everything out through an equity lens, and considering this is, it's a regressive tax. It's essentially acts as a sales tax, has no gauge on what the income of the individual who is purchasing the bags is. So the impact obviously is going to have more impact in our lower income neighborhoods. We have been doing strategic outreach in those neighborhoods specifically and in those communities. The benefit is that the majority of litter that results from plastic bags is also in these lower income neighborhoods. So the hope is that the offset for the tax is physically and visibly seen as an improvement in neighborhoods across the city, but particularly in those that are disenfranchised and have less support infrastructure. I'm getting a lot of thumbs up, guys.
You're getting some thumbs up on that. All right. I think my question to you is, if you get addicted to the novelty-free tote bags, what do you do? Because we have like 50 at our house.
Yes,
if there
I
are any
know.
uses for that, let me know.
You have to start saying no to the free bag giveaways. That's what I have had to start doing.
I've got to add the City of Richmond one to my list now.
Yeah.
And then actually, Steve's asked a good question, which is, can we do anything about straws, plastic straws? Are you aware of any like enabling legislation from the General Assembly about that?
There's nothing in the General Assembly that we can do, but like local campaigns, I think, have been more effective with businesses. Oh, I love the turtle. I know that the other big waste reduction measure that the General Assembly recently, it kind of came into fruition, and you probably have noticed it if you've gone to a Chick-fil-A since the summer. So polystyrene cups, utensil or takeaway containers, any packaging that's associated with food retailers that have 20 or more locations in the state have been banned now as of last July. And this coming summer, July 2026, styrofoam, polystyrene materials will be banned in all food establishments across the state. So that is another big win.
That's huge.
Okay. You guys have some great ideas.
I know. And you've earned yourself an invite to the Scott's Addition Association meeting from Jack, and we can help connect you guys offline on that as well. And to your question about upcoming meetings, yes, we'll definitely be having some more in-person meetings where we can distribute some bags. And then I know we've got some civic association leaders on here who may be interested in having you guys come out or provide some bags at some meetings. So thank you.
Wonderful. Excellent.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
I think you've really hit on, some of the tough ones that come up when we talk about plastic bags and reusable bags. So Tara, thank you for everything you do and your department. It's been very rewarding to see this department grow and all the good work you do throughout the city.
Well, we always enjoy support from your office, so thank you.
We have
Everyone have a great night.
we have a late breaking
Thank you.
question from Matt. Is there a plan to expand styrofoam bans to smaller businesses or offer
Yeah, so that is the next July 2026. The styrofoam ban goes into effect from I guess it is still strictly food establishments. So I guess there's probably still some other businesses that would fall outside of that description that would still use styrofoam. I'm thinking of like those coolers that you can still buy. Maybe those are closer to the beach, or I'm not sure, but yes, people have seen the new cookout box. It is wild. Things can actually change given, legislation.
That sounds like a good follow-up point for Delegate Cousins and our delegation as well, though, if we want to see that further expanded beyond that 2026 timeframe.
Yeah, awesome. Tara, thank you so much. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Tara. All right, our final agenda item of the night. Again, for folks who maybe weren't on at the outset of the meeting when we were doing a little bit of table setting about the agenda, some late breaking news. Our planning department partners were not able to join us tonight ultimately, and folks may have seen the Zoning Advisory Council committee meeting was also canceled today. There is still some work to be done to finalize the second draft, both the map and the regulations that will ultimately be presented next week. And so staff were unable at this time to be able to definitively present on those things, but we do expect for there to be still both the posting of those new districts and regulations next week, as well as a number of events. And that's what we are prepared to speak to this evening a little bit more to make sure that those are on your radar, and also answer any questions folks may have that we might be able to handle for tonight. Councilor Jordan, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think we're all disappointed and we're looking forward to getting maybe not the full readout on what draft 2 is going to look like, but a preview. And so, again, we got the word late today, and we went back and forth on whether or not we wanted to send a specific email about that, but try not to clog everyone's inboxes. And there's still good content to cover in this meeting. So I think at this point, Sven, why don't you pull up, do you have the graphic with the dates on the upcoming meetings? And I think this group here is probably pretty savvy. If you've been coming to our meetings, you likely know about the zoning refresh. And certainly if you don't, there are a lot of resources online and recorded meetings that we've done. The city has a website. If you just Google RVA code refresh, you will have hours of content to go through. So where we are at this point is that they are winding down their updates to the initial draft. Next week, they will release that draft. And once again, people will have the opportunity to provide feedback. But our job as your representative here, and Sven as the liaison to the office, doing a lot of the groundwork and back and forth, and trying to keep everyone updated as they send emails in on this, is just to make sure where we are, that we know where y'all are, what your feelings are, and obviously we want to make sure your comments are being recorded by the planning department, but it's also helpful to hear as we go along, the sort of the temperature across the district. So, Sven, do you have that graphic to put up?
Yeah.
And then we'll get to the questions.
Yep, I'm working on getting the graphic. In the meantime, I have also, I might not be able to pull the graphic from, or I might need to do some screenshot wizardry here, guys, but I did include the newsletter that went out today from the planning department, both about the cancellation of the ZAC, and a reminder about what those dates are for next week. And I think probably the two most relevant for second district in terms of accessibility are going to be a panel on what we're seeing in the housing market on Monday from 6 to 8 at the main library. And I believe that Mayor Avula is going to be participating in that panel. And it's going to kind of set the stage for some of the housing, economic development, and zoning components that are undergirding the code refresh. And then similarly, also at the main library on Wednesday, the 19th from 4 to 7 will be an open house where folks can interact with staff. We are planning on being there as well, and provide feedback as well as take a closer look at the second draft. If folks participated in any of those open houses from the first round, this will be pretty familiar to you because I think it'll be similarly formatted.
Yeah, and so we're getting a couple of questions in the chat already. I know that, when you went to the website, you could see the comments that were left directly on the map. So all of that was available. But do you know, in the past, do you know, Sen, how they are handling the comments that come in through email or otherwise?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is something that we have definitely lifted up to the Code Refresh team throughout the process that folks, particularly those that participate in the public feedback processes, want to see transparency in that data get shared back out so that folks can really understand the totality of the feedback that the city is hearing. And there's definitely been a commitment from the team on that throughout the process, as Councilor Jordan referenced with the map. And being able to see all those comments. My understanding is that they are also collating feedback from things like email inboxes. And we do anticipate being able to see breakdowns in a fair amount of detail on all of that feedback as part of the presentation on the second round. We don't know exactly what form that will take yet. And so I would encourage folks to tune in on, I think Monday it is that we anticipate a lot of that getting posted, and then also being able to see a lot of that at the meetings if you're able to make it out to those as well. And Copeland, I think that relates sort of to your question about themes as well, right? So not just like, broadly thematically, what are folks saying, but also with a degree of specificity. And then the Monday panel, Julie, the information that we have is that it is the theme is housing, economic development, and zoning, what we're seeing in the market. I do not know the totality of who is participating in that panel. I'm happy to ask that. But I would expect to see some industry experts in those spaces commenting on, again, what we're seeing and how that implicates the code refresh.
And obviously, one of the reasons we wanted the planning department here on this meeting is because they're the ones who can best answer your questions. Again, we found really late in the day that they were not going to be able to come. And so not able to be as prepared as we would like to be for some of your questions, which are obvious questions. Just in the juggling of trying to get, a deal with our other responsibilities outside this meeting. But if we can't answer your question in this meeting, we will absolutely be sending them back to the Planning Commission, and we'll post them on our social media as well as in a recap in our Friday newsletter.
Yeah, and thank you, Laura, for posting where folks can find some of the emails that had already been submitted. And if folks are looking for additional venues for conversation about the sort of synthesization of the first round of feedback, we expect a zoning advisory council meeting in December. The planned date for that is December 10th. So that's another opportunity if you're not able to make it out to the open houses, and those are also generally streamed. So if you're not able to make it out in person, that'll be another great opportunity to engage with it. I will just add, since we are later in the evening and I trust all the folks that I see on the screen here, I've gone ahead and just let folks unmute if you'd like to unmute yourself to provide any additional comments or questions at this time.
Sven, one that was already in the chat was verification of where people are when they make comments on any I guess community survey, but especially on this one.
Yeah, and that's feedback that we've certainly heard loud and clear and communicated to the Code Refresh team as well. That we do. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're hearing, if not entirely, certainly primarily from people who live in the city of Richmond about how we're shaping the future of their neighborhoods. And I know that it can sometimes be a limiting factor in terms of the software that we have and the platform that we're using. But I think certainly that is something that the Code Refresh team has heard loud and clear, and we'll look to see how they implement that in subsequent rounds of engagement.
Yeah, and then from our part, and I think you can assume the same is happening in other districts. Council members are going to neighborhood association meetings. They are having district meetings. They are hearing directly from their constituents. So I think you should feel confident that council members know the variety of opinions from Richmonders.
Can I ask a basic question? This is Julie.
Yeah, hi.
Can you just tell us who the new members of the ZAC are? We know we got them. We know some of them. They were supposed to have a meeting tonight, but yet they've not been announced. Can you tell us who they are?
I think that's public information, Sven, correct?
Short answer is no. I don't know who all they are, and I don't think it's been posted to the website yet.
But when will that be, Sven? They were supposed to have a meeting tonight. So
Good question.
We're aware.
I think the idea was to introduce them at the meeting tonight. I can double check the webpage and see if they have updated with additional members, but if they have not, I imagine then that would be announced at the December meeting when they are seated. But we can also ask the Code Refresh team to see if there's plans for either posting that on the webpage or reflecting that in the newsletter that they do, because I think that's a fair question. I think we can confidently say among Second District friends and with an understanding that a lot of the folks on the call tonight have worked with Melissa in the past. We do know, the one that we do know is that from the Second District, an additional appointee is Melissa Savenko. She is the current zoning chair for the Fan District Association and has been incredibly active in both Code Refresh and also these issues for a long time. So again, probably not an unfamiliar name for a lot of the folks on the call tonight, but that is the only one that we have visibility into considering her coming from the Second District. And yes, Danielle, I would agree. We're excited to have Melissa on board.
And then Planning Commission is on Tuesday, the 18th. So it's possible that they may discuss it at that meeting.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of that. And if you're not already planning on tuning into that meeting, that is also the meeting that we expect for Planning Commission to take a final vote on the Cultural Heritage Stewardship Plan as amended coming out of subcommittee. And we are joined tonight by Second District resident and Planning Commission member Vic McKenzie, who I see on screen now. Vic, thanks.
This is funny because we discussed, should we ask Vic if he wants to stand in on behalf of the planning department? We thought, that's really not fair. He's not a Second District specific member.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, you're here. You've heard some of the questions. Grateful that you obviously serve on Planning Commission. Do you have any insight in some of these concerns or questions?
Sure. I haven't been able to catch all the questions. I would absolutely say planning department will be best positioned to answer with as much detail as possible. I do want to uplift sharing these comments and concerns with all of Planning Commission. As you're going through the rezoning process, a lot of this is flushed out at the advisory council level, but then it does come up to Planning Commission. And we want to make sure we have an eye on what's going on or what themes are arising before it gets to us for a vote, so that we're aware and we can ask the right questions. So in general, I would just encourage that. I will say, yes, next Tuesday, we are going to see an update on the rezoning plan as well as the cultural stewardship heritage plan. And the second draft, I believe, for the plan was released late last week. I've also asked planning staff to hopefully present a short presentation on what those changes were, especially if they have of material. In addition to that, I've also requested that we be seated in council chamber so that we can accommodate all that want to show up and speak to this. I remember last time it was up, we had folks out into the hallways, right? So we want to make sure that we're providing a comfortable environment and that all voices are heard. So.
Awesome. And Vic,
Yep.
do you want to just give a quick introduction of yourself? There are folks who maybe don't
Oh
know
yeah,
you
sure.
as a neighbor. Just give a
Yeah, I see
quick.
some familiar names on here.
Yeah.
But for those who I have not met yet, once again, my name is Victor McKenzie, and I am serve on the Planning Commission. Although it's appointed for citywide, I am a second district resident, so I do have, I do like to keep an eye on what's going on and what the concerns are from this specific community. Just a quick reminder, Planning Commission handles everything from rezoning cases, special use permits, conditional use permits, and major developments. In addition to that, I serve as the liaison to the Urban Design Committee, and that group just focuses on what city looks like, really from the street level. We review, public projects, everything from parks, major developments, the Arthur Ashe Boulevard Bridge that we just approved back in September. And as far as my background, I run a public health organization currently, live out here in the fan with my wife and daughter. And yeah, I'll share my information. If folks want to talk, I'm always happy to listen, especially from community members and connecting with all of our neighborhood associations.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so bonus to have you here, obviously. Sven,
Can
anything
I
new
ask a
coming
quick
in?
question of him?
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, Julie. So Vic, I just want to confirm, you do plan to have a public comment period during your meeting?
Yes.
That did not happen last time. That's the reason I'm asking.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm pushing for as much transparency and public input as possible. So,
And you anticipate that this is the final vote on the Heritage Plan?
I am one of 9 members, but I do believe there is a desire, and I certainly have one, to go ahead and get this out of Planning Commission and on its way to council.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And just a quick clarifier there, Vic, I hate to do it to you, but I do not think this is going to council. I think this is ultimately lives
Adopted.
lives with Planning Commission, and so there would be no subsequent step for council in terms of consideration of the plan. However, to Vic's point, there would be plenty that council then and the administration can and should do to partner on the implementation of the plan subsequent.
Yes, and speaking to that, one of the things that we've been working on, and it's hard to line up legislation with plans sometimes. Was hoping, like a lot of people listening, that the plan would have already been approved by the time my anti-demolition paper had gotten to council. That is still like in the queue to happen. It's just being continued until the Heritage Plan gets adopted by the Planning Commission. And then I anticipate it having smooth sailing from there. And again, that's specific to fines within old and historic districts. But there'll be other things that come out of this that are important. And I had referenced in the past that if the Heritage Plan just didn't come out of the Planning Commission, council would likely try to intervene and just pass it as a standalone plan. So there are lots of ways to crack this nut, but I think it's winding its way through the normal process.
And for folks that are unfamiliar with that resolution, that first stage of that legislative process, I dropped that in the chat if you want to take a look at. Sleeves asked about vape shops. Did he miss the vape shops part of the meeting? While vape shops were not formally on the agenda, they're always on the agenda.
Yes.
So if you have any questions relating to vape shop regulations, happy to address that. For folks that missed it earlier this summer, and in part at Councilor Jordan's insistence, in terms of the timing of the vote, council acted quickly to take a recommendation from the planning department to regulate vape shops such that essentially you can't open a new one in the city going forward without a conditional use permit, and to also further regulate some things like hours and things like that as well.
Yeah, and that along with short-term rentals are two things obviously that are in drag racing. There are lots of quality of life issues having to do with code enforcement. It's actually more than, sorry, drag racing and noise is quality of life. code enforcement when it comes to what these places are selling, really illegally most often. And then the Airbnbs not complying with the regulations that we have. This is something that we bring up constantly with planning staff, as well as with the mayor's office and the CAO, and including today. So you can be sure that we'll be asking again in this year's budget to make sure that we have the code enforcement staff that are required to really react in the most timely way. Additionally, we need to find a way to pressure the platforms of these short-term rentals to help us manage the listings that they know are not in compliance, frankly. When it comes to the vape shops, that's another one where there are things that we can do locally, which we've been moving on. But additionally, we need more resources, I think, at the state level. So it's top of mind for us. And every opportunity we have to make progress on it, we are taking, I assure you. And if you see folks operating illegally, continue to report them. Just report. It's important that we continue to speak up on it. And sometimes these things take longer than we would all like, obviously.
Yep. Yeah, and I will say folks have probably seen that there's been a ton of enforcement action on the part of RPD, but also our community code enforcement team that includes the planning department, health department, fire marshal, that have been understanding that existing vape shops are grandfathered. We've been making sure that those that are operating currently are operating in compliance, whether that be for your certificate of occupancy, your business license, up to date on taxes, complying with health code and fire regulations. And what we have seen is a lot of them are not. And so that remains a tool in the toolbox. And part of that is assisted by outreach, to Councilor Jordan's point, from residents about what they're seeing in their community and any issues they might witness.
Yeah, and then obviously sometimes there's trepidation about reporting illegal behavior. One thing that you can do is download the Live Safe app, LiveSafe. And mainly this is connected to VCU campus, but you can report things anonymously. And if it's not within the jurisdiction of VCU, they will then bump it straight on to RPD. And you can include photo evidence, descriptions, like the whole 9 yards. So that I do think is a valuable tool to have, and it's a pretty straightforward app. I have it on my phone. Going back to the drag racing, we did have some, I would say, encouraging news from the police chief that they have been able to utilize their air support to track down folks, including those that were doing the Broad Street takeover at the intersection of Arthur Ashe Boulevard and Broad, and that will lead to some arrests. But it's a tricky situation that they cannot necessarily send officers into that situation as it's occurring and not risk people getting hurt. And we've seen officers get hit by motorcyclists. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the video that when they tried to deter that activity on Broad Street. We've seen pedestrians and bystanders injured as vehicles are trying to flee. So one thing that we are working on to increase, the good things that happen of, people being caught and deterring it is when we catch people, we need to do a better job communicating that out. And so I don't know if it's that the media hadn't picked it up or if RPD is not pushing out the information enough, but showing the seized dirt bikes, making sure there are press releases about the drivers that are caught. And we're here to help them with that. So another thing that'll help is if we can get some more like red light cameras and things like that. That is a good deterrence. But hopefully we can start to turn the tide on this completely unacceptable, dangerous behavior. Folks are really coming in from other localities to do it here. And it's just so frustrating. It's dangerous. It's terrible. I know we had some other questions. Copeland, you had a question. Go back to the chat.
Yeah, folks, at this point, it may be even easier just to keep track. If you guys want to just voice your questions, we can talk it through.
And I would say, if it's okay with everyone, let's try and aim to wrap up by 7:30. And as always, if you have a question you're not comfortable asking in this format, you can do a private direct message in the chat, or you can just email us or contact us directly afterwards, and we're happy to follow up with you outside of this format. So Copeland, you had a question about the zoning employee who was caught illegally profiting on short-term rentals. And I think usually what they tell us is like, don't discuss employee situations and HR situations, but obviously I didn't like reading that article either, so it's challenging, but I believe it was not that person, it was their spouse.
And yeah, and just to happy to share an article about that for folks that may not be familiar with it. But ultimately the compliance step that was taken there, which is what would be taken with any City of Richmond resident, was to ensure that once the planning department was notified of that issue, that they came into compliance and ultimately got a permit. And that is what occurred in that case as well.
But yeah, no, not a good look. Was very discouraged to read that also.
And I think not surprising to folks, right? Like sometimes we learn things by reading about them in the news as well. And I'll say when we heard about that, we had very quick conversations with the planning department, because, to Councilor Jordan's point, it's an issue of public trust, right? We got to make sure that we as the city need to be following our own rules, certainly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously we've spent a lot of time with this portion of the meeting talking about zoning, code enforcement, things like that. But in the remaining 18 minutes, is there anything else folks would like to lift up that that Sven or myself can respond to? And we will be having another meeting in December, and we're going to try and make that one in person, unless folks really prefer the virtual. I think there are benefits and drawbacks to both.
Sleeves did ask about election. Oh, sorry, was that Julie?
Yeah, I'm sorry, one more zoning question, but
Sure.
I'm just looking at Laura's question about the role of city council in.
Okay, sorry, let me get to that.
Yeah. So Laura, thank you for flagging that. And again, feel free to come off mute to talk about it a little bit more. My understanding of the wording of that resolution and what I was trying to convey with Vic's commentary earlier was simply that amendment of the master plan is the sole providence of the planning commission. When planning commission then opts to amend the master plan, they can then send that amended version of the master plan back to city council to formally adopt. So it's a little bit kind of in the weeds. But I mean, to your point, it is true that there is a role for council ultimately in adopting an amended version of the master plan. But whether or not the cultural heritage stewardship plan is adopted as an amendment to the master plan ultimately is a question for planning commission. That's sort of a quirk of our charter that some folks on the call tonight are all too familiar with from instances of city council attempting to directly amend the master plan in the past.
Quiet. Okay. Arthur Ashe Bridge has reopened partially, so that's a positive thing to lift up at the end of this meeting.
And the Nickel Bridge had a celebration, apparently.
Yeah, it's 100 years. 100 years. Pipeline TBD. I think that's unfortunately a more complicated situation.
The Texas East Bridge, I think, is under construction. I think they're making good progress on that one.
Okay. I don't go there very often.
CSX own a lot of land in the city, and we gotta work with them where we can. Absolutely. Yeah. Jacob asks, is the Arthur Ashe Bridge going to be closed again later this month? The bridge, not to our understanding, once that in-street utility work is completed, not to our knowledge is what I'll say. I'm happy to check on that because I don't want to lead anybody astray. There's also work obviously on Hermitage, which has compounded the traffic situation in that area. So happy to check in with the project teams on both of those and report back. But yes, to Sleep's point, Marathon is this weekend. So even if and when everything is fully reopened, be prepared for some significant traffic impacts, and pray for me because I will be running the half.
Ah,
All right.
good for you.
We'll see, Julie. We'll see.
Okay.
I'm confident you'll do well.
Better than if I had to do it, that's for sure. The last time I tried to run, I think it was a half or maybe it was a 10K, but I did the run walk option and I was walking on Broad Street and a father leaned down to his son and said, "Everyone's on their own journey, son." So I started running again. I was shaming,
Firing
but
hearts and minds. What'll keep me going is the fact that a large portion of the marathon is through the second district. So there you go.
It is.
yeah, we're really deviating off the agenda at this point. So
Yes.
with that, I think we will just adjourn a little bit early.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Catherine, I will just say that Sleaze asked a question about what is possible given the electoral outcomes. And what I will just say to folks is, I think we touched on it tonight. The city has a role in establishing our agenda and communicating that, but ultimately it is really about residents reaching out directly to their delegates and their senators to voice what it is that they care about. Because a lot is on the table now for next session in a way that's very exciting. And we got to take advantage of that.
100%.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.